Like we live in very hard times. We live in a time where people seem to have absolutely no value for life. And I was like, wow, this is like really one of those adventure Robinson Crusoe kind of, stories. And here was this very quiet man that single-handedly saved an entire species from going extinct. And that's the power of one person. Being chased by wild elephants, nearly starving to death, stranded on islands.
Amazing individual who's completely not interested in personal glory, it appears, just dedicating his life to something. So, Tarar, I'll ask you the dumb, obvious question first, which is that what was it about Satish Bhaskar that made you feel that not only is he an interesting person, but that a whole film can be built around him? Could you tell us about how you learned of him and how you met him, Mitch?
First of all, thank you so much to the Red Lorry Film Festival. This is one of the best screenings we had in terms of the projections. Truly amazing. I pity that we but exceed today about experience in such a big way. So I first learned about Satish Bhaskar through an article written by a famous herpetologist, James Romulus Whittaker. And when I read this article, I was immediately completely captivated by the legends and the stories about Satish. You know, the Balkan letter, being chased by wild elephants, nearly starving to death, stranded on islands. And I was like, wow, this is like really one of those adventure Robinson Crusoe kind of, stories that I think will really resonate with a lot of people. I think when it comes to wildlife and conservation, to me, I felt like human stories are what would really help people connect to that, to these animals. And we only want to protect something when we care for it. And so that's really what drew me to Satish. And then, of course, on top of that, like, he was such a reclusive person. He really did not care about any sort of recognition. And that really made me even more interested in telling his story because it felt very authentic.
So, how did you track him down?
So he had no digital footprint. Not shocking because he really had kind of disappeared when he retired. And so I read about there's an article or sorry a chapter about him in a book written by Dr. Karthik Shankar. He's a herpetologist. And so I reached out to Karthik, said, can you connect me to Satish? He gave me his daughter's number in Bangalore, and eventually I got the number for Satish and his wife, and the phone is picked up by this very friendly, cheerful voice, which is Auntie Brenda. And I found out that they lived just an hour away from my home in Goa, which to me was the most serendipitous thing. And I went to his house, and immediately he was like, "I'm not interested in any documentary being made on me." And he's like, National Geographic, Discovery, all these people approach me, but I'm not interested. And for some reason, Auntie Brenda, she just like kept calling me back for like meals. She'd be like, no, 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 come over for lunch. She really wanted to. I think she understood that he needed a little time. And then after a couple of weeks of spending time together, finally, it's like, actually, yeah, I'm ready to make a film.
So, you spent 8 years on making this film. We sadly see that Mr. Bhaskar and his wife are no more. Um, what took so long? Is this generally the way documentaries of this nature, do they take that long to be made? Why did it take so long to sort of reach its, be complete?
Yes, I mean, this was my first feature documentary, so it's hard for me to really compare it to anything else. But I think it does take quite long. Documentary fans, I heard about them taking 12 years to make sometimes. Um, but I think the reason is because you really have to build in the funding and the infrastructure and support system around you. So when you're starting out, it's hard to get someone to invest in the film when you're doing it for the first time. So a lot of it goes into attending pitching forums, building the story, getting mentorship, and finally having like a really solid proof of concept before someone feels comfortable to support it, take it in like through to fruition. And so I think that's why it sort of took so long. And then when you're trying to tell a story that happens over so many decades, And you want to see the change in a character and the development in their life, progression in their life. I think that also just takes time.
So yeah, you backed this film. You sort of one of the people who's helped bring it to to give it sort of a wider exposure. How did you first hear of this project? What made you think that you wanted to support it? This one?
Angad Dev Singh, who worked with me, is a producer on the film, and he worked with me, and he actually got it to me. So he met her, and he got this project to me, and it was at that time a teaser, I think, and the story. And I never heard of him. I never heard of Satish Bhaskar, and I was absolutely fascinated by him. Then she sent me whatever cut she had done, whatever they had shot till then, and they still needed to complete the film. They needed funds to come in, and I just was so moved when I saw it and what she was doing. And like we live in very hard times. We live in a time where people seem to have absolutely no value for life. And here was this very quiet man that single-handedly saved an entire species from going extinct. And that's the power of one person. And here he was not wanting anything. And here's this girl also that, and it's weird because I know her parents from back in the day, and they moved, and it was just a very strange connection. And somehow I don't know, I was very deeply moved. He showed it to Rima as well, who had the exact reaction. And we were like, these are the stories that need to be told. It was somebody that just valued life.
Was the fictional aspects of this documentary, which also makes it unusual? You've used recreation. You used an actor to play the younger Satish Vaskar. Were those elements also something that perhaps you saw that, okay, this is not a conventional documentary, but this is something different? Did that also attract you as a producer?
No, I think the story attracted me. I think of course, how she's treated it, and the footage of it, and seeing nature, attracts me. So I knew she needed the recreation. I knew that in terms of storytelling, she needed to go there because you won't experience it otherwise in the same way. You can't just have talking heads. You need to be there. You need to see this. You need to somehow imagine the isolation, the solitude, and the wildness. It's wild the way he lived for years. So I think she treated that really well. I think it's shot beautifully. So those things, yeah, of course, were all attractive.
Tara, would you tell us a little bit about how you, there was a documentary that you were interviewing the Mr. Bhaskar. Tell us a little bit about how you approached the recreation bit, because that is really, it feels like a fiction film in those sections. So tell us how you approached it and designed those scenes.
Yeah, so the recreations was something that came about, I would say, like a little later on into production. I had seen a film made by our executive producer, James Reed. So before he made My Octopus Teacher, he made another film called Jago. And that had used like really beautifully recreations to show a free diver's life in his childhood days. And Krish and I were both there watching together, and we thought, oh, hey, like maybe this is something. And Krish is our DP, by the way, he's right there. So we both thought, like maybe this is something we should keep. Yeah, he did Dex. He's in her class for push. Music, he's much job. So yeah, so we were thinking, like how can is this maybe something we could do? And I honestly did not have the confidence for it, but because Krish came from a background of fiction, he understood lighting, composition, and how to shoot dramatizing like recreations and reconstructions. We said, okay, let's go for it. Let's try it out. And this young man, this actor, he's actually another friend of ours. He's a painter. And our producer, Nikita Mame, she said, oh, why not Rohan? And that honestly, their personalities are exactly the same. They're both recluses. They both, they prefer to just be on these wild islands around Anams. So it's perfect. And we did one schedule of recreation filming in Lakshadweep. We came back, we cut another teaser with it. And that's when we realized, like, we showed it to a lot of people. In fact, that was the teaser that we showed to Typo BP and Pitch with, and we realized it was working, so we decided to go for it.
So all the recreated bits in this are trying to sort of give you an idea of what it was like happened decades ago, right? The end of the film, the back shot that we see of that is Mr. I was a little confused about
Yes,
that, honest.
that's Siddharth Bhaskar.
That's him. Oh, okay. And when you got him come back to the place that he had visited so many years ago, what was it like for you? Because you had recreated bits, you were essentially seeing him back in his habitat, as it were. It's very emotional for him, clearly. What was it like for you and your team?
So we basically, when we started making this film, we asked him, "Would you like to go back to the islands?" And for him, that was like that. His eyes just lit up. He was so excited, and we said, "Where would you like to go?" He said, "South Reef Island." That was the place closest to us out. So we went there, and when we reached there, we quickly realized that the boat could not access the island because the tsunami had completely uplifted the coral reefs, and it was just not safe for the boat to approach. And so the captain, the DFO was there. He said, it's time to turn around. We have to go back. And I think Satish sort of like realized that. And he just like put on his fins, dove into the water, and all of us were just there like in shock. We were like, how do we capture this? And so we had to throw a bunch of gear into like our pelican. All of us jumped over, and he just sort of came alive, and we were like rushing to keep up with him. Because he was determined to survey that island and find, like, look for the seat of his. So he was just a different person when he went back to the islands, and we were basically just playing cash out with him the whole time.
Oh, so since the film has been completed, could you tell me about what the journey has been like in terms of distributing it, getting it out to an audience, and what do you plan to do with the films now from, going forward?
As of now, it's done about 70 festivals globally. It's won 20 awards. She's won the West. This is all. She's won the Jackson Wild Award, which is like, the highest, like the Oscar of environmental films. So we plan to do 50 screenings now around India, community screenings for people to see it, people to talk about it. If you all like this film, please talk about it, please post about it. It just increases eyeballs. And hopefully, we are going to try and see how we can get it distributed here. People need to see these stories, and we need to have our platforms, present these stories, because these are the India stories that even should go global in that sense. So we've had great audiences. We're continuing the tour. We've done how many more? I think it's about 20 screenings. Yeah, so we want to do about 30 more. Yeah, we have about 30.
In fact, Nikita, who runs Lost the Plot, who's running our screening, Joe, she's right there as well. She's really a fantastic job. And like we were a bit surprised to see the response. Like, our screenings have been full, and a lot of them they've had to open, like more spaces or organize other screenings in the city. So it's been really heartwarming to see that people want to see films like this.
There's all this talk about, oh, cinema's dying, films are dying, they're talking about fiction now. Every day, every month, Bollywood's obituary is written. As somebody who has experience of how traditional, conventional fiction films are distributed and get out there, what chances do you see for the documentary? And do you think the current sort of scenario is welcome to documentary at all? And is there some way that we can innovatively perhaps approach distribution?
No, I think the audience's palette, as we have seen, has changed. Every time they get something new, it takes it's an acquired taste. It takes a little bit of time, and then it changes. Who would have thought that our audience would read subtitles, or who would have thought that they would be okay with the kind of films they're watching? They're watching everything now, so everywhere, So it's a matter of time, and it's a matter of consistent exhibition. And consistent exposure. Right now, the documentaries that we get to see on our streaming platforms are either crime, or then they are Bollywood, the industry. So it's either about that, or it's about some crime, or somebody getting scammed by somebody, or, it's in that zone. But the more stories people watch, the more they are open to watch. That's it.
I have just one or two last questions and then we'll throw it open to the audience. So, there's an impact campaign around this film. You've also mentioned it in the closing credits. Could you tell people about exactly how you've not just made the film, but you're also taking the film into other areas?
Yes, so we learned about impact campaigns and impact filmmaking about like one third into our journey. Decided to start our own. Essentially, impact filmmaking is like, when people watch a film and they're deeply moved by it, how do you then channel that into some kind of action? There's been really successful campaigners around the world that have really been able to create a lot of tangible change. So we put together a team back in, I think, 2020. And since then, we've done a couple of really major goals that we had in place. So one was to create a marine megafauna stranding and response network all along the western coast of India for all marine animals. And so we raised about $330,000 through CSR funds, all in India, to support this endeavor. So that's continuing to run. We also teamed up with Teach for India's Firki teacher training program to introduce marine curriculum into schools. And now we're working on something called the CoastNet Action Cooperative, which is essentially found out that most of the strandings are happening because the turtles are getting entangled in ghost nets and then they're done. So we're trying to figure out a way to bring these ghost nets in and then upcycle them. So that program is just started. In fact, we're just in the process of fundraising for that. And then the screening door is the fourth aspect of it. So we're taking it, of course, to communities, but also to schools and universities. And really kind of sharing with students like what is the power of one person, because I think we underestimate like what we can do, on an individual level. We think that the climate change sort of issue is so big, it can be really intimidating. But one person, as we can see with this film, can achieve so much. And so, yeah, that's been mainly what our back campaign has been.
Wonderful. Just hoping for a different film there. That why Casey. I didn't know Kish would be here. I think, may I ask him a question?
Yes.
How do you shoot this film? Somebody get this man a mic, please.
Yes. I mean, it was honestly a very collaborative experience. Tyra and me have actually grown up together, and this is our first feature together. But we made 2 shots before this, and I think that communication and trust that we built over this journey has been, I think, instrumental in how these images have come together. I mean, it also helped being in spaces like this where I think it's hard to not shoot it well, but at the same time, yeah, it was just a very organic experience and very small team, but everybody kind of pitched in. There was, I mean, all the drone footage you see is actually Tyra. She was a drone pilot for all of that. We had a great friend, Umid, who helped us with all the underwater stuff. So it was, like I said, a team effort, and I think we just had a great time working together. And I think all were kind of inspired by Satish, and that kind of like tied it all together.
Well, another round of applause for this great. What is your open to the audience? Questions, please. Comments later, but first questions, please. And keep them short if you can. Thank you.
Hi, thank you guys. First of all, congratulations on the film. Beautiful film. I'm glad to have seen it on IMAX. I had a very specific question because you did recreate some bits. That leatherback turtle that you have in that scene when he finds it for the first time, was that a real leatherback? How did you go about shooting those scenes with the real turtles?
Yes, that was a real leatherback. They grow to about 7 feet in length and they weigh up to 1 ton, so they're huge. They're actually prehistoric. They come from a different family altogether. And they only nest in 2 islands in India, so it's very special. But maybe you can talk about how we filmed it.
Sure. So I mean, it was again took a lot of time because when you're working with wildlife, you need to have time on your hands, and so very specific seasons when we could go and shoot. And so along with the research team, we spent 2 seasons at West Bay, and essentially how it works is every night you have to walk along the beach. The research team obviously knows how to find their tracks and identify if a turtle has come up to nest or has just left. And so yeah, so along with them, we'd walk up and down the beach. It was a 7 kilometer beach. So every night we walk about 14 kilometers with all our gear. We had to have infrared lights because that would allow us to film without disturbing the turtles. And also they would let us know a point at which we could then move it to start filming, because there's a certain period of time during the nesting process when they don't get disturbed. And so that's when we would film. And I think it just, like I said, first, the most important thing was having the time. And so we'd show up every night, walk 14 kilometers every night. Some nights you wouldn't see a single turtle, some night you'd see three. So it was just being there and then slowly learning and understanding also how they behave, which allowed me to also kind of understand how to shoot. So some nights I'd go and shoot and realize, okay, that footage didn't really work because I was actually in the wrong spots. And then that sort of allowed me to go back the next night and maybe preempt what the turtle was about to do. So to get into a better position to try and get the angle that we needed. And then, of course, the edit team put it together beautifully in that sequence. So, yeah, then
Fantastic. Thank you.
We did one back there. A question back.
Reporters Michael Casey, but really glad that the movies come out at a pretty important site, because the great Nicobar project, we're going to see a start shipment for summing up planning of million trees has been okayed by the National Green Tribunal.
So yeah, firstly, a couple of questions. One is, did you find it tricky getting permissions? I know that the project has been around for recent years, that the amount of access that you get is also something that was limited. But also, how did you deal with the question of human pressure, right? Like, so far, throughout the narrative, you kind of see that it's mostly post-tsunami recovery, whereas again, you're looking at an event, but again, whether it's, we talk about overfishing and there is the tsunami, but the other sorts of pressures, whether it's climate change, whether it's industrial, like, how did you choose, what makes it to the narrative of the human story of Satish's story and centering it, focusing on the tsunami versus everything else that's around. So yeah, thank you so much. And
Yeah, so getting permits to film these locations is not easy. We actually had to do special trips there, and did make several months, visit several departments. Everyone sends you to another department, because there's a lot of layers of protection of these spaces. Luckily, we're working with a local organization, the Action Foundation, who are running this project, and they really supported us and helped us in getting the permits. In terms of the Great Nicobar project and the human sort of impact, we did explore looking at other issues around sea turtles in terms of plastic pollution and now fishing, but none of them were really connected to Satish's story. And for us, I think for me as a storyteller, like, the strength really lay in staying close to him and his journey and his story. As soon as you start introducing other issues and other characters and stuff, it really weakens that connection. So I really wanted that emotion to come across. I wanted people to connect with Satish deeply and fall in love with these animals. That was my role, my goal with the film.
Anyone else?
does anyone have a question?
I can take one.
Thank you.
I've never seen tsunami be of benefit to somebody, but thank you so much for this. And my question is, 8 years is what it's taken, and what was Satish's reaction to this?
So unfortunately, he didn't get to see the final cut. He and Auntie Brenda both passed away before the film was ready. He got to see the first cut of the film, and he loved it. He asked us to take out one shot, which we did. And so did Auntie Brenda. But unfortunately, they didn't get to see the final film, which is something we're very sad about. But we had their children watch it, because for us, it's really important to have someone from the family watch it and make sure that it was accurately representing this story. So they've been very supportive. They've been attending screenings and sort of being on these panels with us. And I think for them, it's really amazing to see because there's a lot of sacrifice that went into it from the family. So get to see him have this moment is really special for them.
Thank you, Zoe, for liking some cute things. Thank you.
Any other questions? There's one at the back. Oh,
Sorry, I had one other question regarding how you went about making this. Since you said a foundation helped you initially, do you find it challenging to navigate different stakeholders in a project like this, where they felt like they were supporting you in the process, and so they wanted a bigger stake in your project? How did you go about that while still keeping the core of the story the same and not letting it get diluted because you had to like appease different stakeholders, if that makes sense?
Yes. So, I mean, I think that's always a matter of conversation, right? And understanding and sort of interacting as you go forward, uh, because the story keeps developing, right? So, that communication, I think, is really important. Um, the foundation that helped us, they were more scientific and research partners. So, they weren't really involved in like as producers or anything like that. So I think our roles were very clearly defined from the beginning as well. That's really important. Yeah, that's how we went about it.
yes, one sure. Right. Yeah. One question here in the front.
Hi, guys. That was really beautiful, and it's really nice of you to share all of this stuff about how the logistics of making the film work. I'm very curious about what the emotional journey of making something over 8 years has been like for both you and Krish, Tyra. Like, I'm sure it's been a lot. And if you're okay to share, I'd love to know.
Yeah, it's a bit tough. I think, there's a lot of, highs and lows. But I think for me, what was really important was to have mentorship, was to sort of surround myself with people who are already really good at their craft. Because there's a lot of self doubt when you're doing it the first time. You don't know how to do things, you're trying to navigate and figure it out. It gets intimidating, especially when you have people like, big partners like Tiger Baby and Tandovan Studios like, support you, in the project. You're like, oh, you feel intimidated by it and you want to like deliver and make the best one that you can. So I think having a really experienced team of collaborators for me was how I managed to, learn and also feel like confident in being able to like see this vision through.
I think that's beautiful. Was there ever a moment where you wanted to interfere with the turtle and take something with it?
No. Because they're shades of one species, so we're not allowed to interact with them. And we wanted to do this in the most respectful way possible. So we were usually with the forest rangers or with the the scientific advisors, and they usually handled that as they needed to. But we were really kind of like you get them at arm's length.
Thank you for sharing your feelings, and I'm super inspired by all.
There's one question in the front.
Hello, ma'am. This is Adbud Anand. I'm a 18-year-old filmmaker. Like I'm just starting my filmmaking journey. So I wanted to ask कि like आपको ये फिल्म डॉक्यूमेंट्री बनाने में 8 साल लगे. तो जब स्टार्टिंग आपने सोचा था कि आपको बनानी है और अभी जो बन के निकली है, क्या मतलब जो विजन था वो पहले जो आपने सोचा था ये वही बन के निकली है, या फिर समय के साथ-साथ जब आप मतलब फील्ड पे गए, आप लोग आइलैंड पे लगे रहे होंगे, तो चीज़ें बदली, तो मतलब जो आपका विज़न था आप उस पे फिक्स रहे, या आपने उसको मतलब उभरने का मौका दिया? मतलब
So the story stayed pretty much the same, which is bizarre. I think that doesn't happen very often. It meandered a lot, explored many different things, but we stuck to it being about Satish Paskar and, in the past, rooted in the past. But yeah, like the recreations, the way we shot and edited it. Like those are things I never could have imagined that it would turn out this way. I mean, when we started making this film, it was a short film, so it's changed a lot.
लाइक आप लोगों ने जाके रियल में आइलैंड वगैरह पे वो रहे होंगे शूट किया तो आपने मतलब कुछ ऐसा होता है ना कि लाइक बीइंग अ फिल्म मेकर फिल्मिंग इज अ जर्नी लाइक आई एम इनटू फिल्म मेकिंग क्योंकि आई रियली लाइक द प्रोसेस ऑफ बिकमिंग अ फिल्म ऐसा मुझे लगता है अभी तो जिया नहीं है सब कुछ सो आपने ओ, तो आपने कुछ ऐसा मतलब होता है ना लाइक आप समझ लो मैं क्या पूछना चाहता हूँ I will elaborate. So I want to ask you, like, the journey of
We don't have this much of back juicy book.
okay. So that's all. Look, you're talking about. And I want to say that I am really interested in the like marketing or the part of the film. I'm a Gen Z, then I know the amount mindset of people like me. I can really help in the marketing. So please.
Okay. There's Bhumi there at the back. Bhumi and Kashmir, right? And take his number because he's going to help us market.
And do it. We all I think it's beautiful.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Can I request your viewers if you come this side, we can have a selfie kind of a thing if that's okay with you. This.
Sure.
Let's see what.
Before we wrap up, we have one more question. But before that, yeah, we can just take this last question and then, yeah, we'll do it.
Now in documentaries, editing is really crucial. It's editor does like he rewires, evolves, things changes. Like he does half of writing type of thing. So you should edit the documentary over 8 years. So how does that evolve along with the footage and the editing?
So the editor we work with is a really fantastic editor. His name is Sam Rogers. And what we did was, it was my first documentary. So I really asked him how the process is and he guided us. So we had like our own paper script, which evolved and evolved through the process of the filmmaking. And then in post-production as well, we used all the transcribed all the interviews, went through all the rushes, and we put together a script, which is about, I think, 120 pages. And then we shared that with Sam. And essentially, we prepared everything for him because every day of hiring someone like this is expensive. And so you want to make sure you set it up so that when you hand it to them, they can just hit the ground running. So, but he was an amazing editor. And I remember the first time he sent us the first couple of scenes. And all of us saw it and we were just like, wow. Like, we were all just blown away because we'd never, sometimes you make films like this with recreations and interview and you don't really know what's going to come out, right? At the end of it, it's like, it's an idea. And I mean, first see it and you see it come together well. Like for us, I think that was a huge, moment for us. Yeah.
I think that last sequence, especially of the hatchlings going to the water, it's very moving, right? I mean, you're egging them on and you really feel very emotional when they finally hit the water. Like. So, okay, absolutely last question. Absolutely last question.
Yeah. So it might sound a little shallow, but I have to ask this. But do projects like these make money? What's the economics?
We'll find out. We'll let you know next year. But you can help us.
When the New York Comms marketing team